Peter Charles here of Hooked Fly Fishing, and today we're going to look at tying the Willie Gunn. Now this is a very famous Atlantic salmon fly, and this time we're going to tie it on a tube, though it could be tied on a hook or a shank, whichever way you like to tie it. It's a famous pattern, it's been around a long time. It's named after a famous Scottish gillie by the name of Willie Gunn. Makes sense, of course, though he wasn't the one who invented the fly. Now, you're going to say to yourself, well, I don't fish Atlantic salmon, is it any good to me? Well, I'll tell you, it catches steelhead. Does it ever catch steelhead? And if you look at it, it's fire tiger colors. I mean, our conventional anglers have been telling us how great these colors are all these years, and it works at a fly too. Okay, let's look at the tube. It's aluminum, it's 3/32 in outside diameter, and it's lined with plastic so it won't cut the leader. At the front end I've got a 1/2 inch of 1/8 OD copper, and the purpose of that is to weight the tube so that the fly rides level and it doesn't ride with hook point sagging down. Our thread today is uni 6/0. Our tag is going to be gold silver in a mylar, and then we have gold tinsel in a large size, and our body is going to be black yarn. And the wing material is bucktail, and I've got it in yellow, orange, and black. And the important thing when you're using bucktail for this kind of fly is you always use the hairs from the tip, not the base. If you use the base hairs, they're hollow and it has a tendency to flare, plus it makes the fly buoyant, and we don't want that. Now, you'll see this fly tied using black floss instead of yarn. I prefer yarn. You can use black floss, it doesn't matter. There's also other body colors that are used. There's a gold version, and I mean, plenty of versions of this fly. So I think this is fairly close to original except for being on a tube. So let's get started with our black thread. I'll just cast it on. Now we're going to tie the tag on at the front, and we're going to tie it on top, silver side up. And the reason why we tie it silver side up is that when we flip it over to begin to wrap it, it'll flip over to the gold side. Now you're saying to yourself, why put that on top at the front? Well, I'm going to deliberately build a ridge across the top of the fly, and I've got a video on both using the copper tube for weighting and also this idea of putting all your materials on top to have your tube fly ride level. And the idea is to keep it from rolling on its side. Now this fly is tied in the round, and you're saying to yourself, hang on, why does it matter it's tied in the round? The reason for that is I like to have my hook points riding up. I use little double hooks, and the areas I fish on the Grand have a lot of rocky ridges, so I want the fly to be able to bounce over those ridges. And if I used an end around where the hook point hung down, I'd be snagging up all the time. So this is my personal preference, but you don't have to do it this way. If you want to begin your tag at the end here, go for it, you can. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. Now I'm just going to unwind that. A couple of wraps in there. Now I'm going to move that tag back up on top, and then just get it heading downstream here right across the top, make that ridge. Now you'll notice this is kind of ragged in here. Now you're going to look at that and say, my, that's messy, that's awful, that's ugly. Why would you do that? It's a messy looking fly. Now if I was going to put a floss body on this, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I'd make sure that's nice and smooth. But I'm putting on a yarn body. I don't have to. Now you know why I like yarn. So the next bit is to put in our tinsel. Again, it goes on the top at the front to create that ridge. Now we tie in the yarn, just pull that back, secure it. Now, again, keeping them all on top. Make that ridge. And of course you see things are now getting squished down, so it's starting to look a lot neater. So when I bring that yarn across the top, now we're going to have a nice neat body. I'm going to put a 1/2 hitch here. I'll bring my bobbin holder over. because I'm going to use my rotary vise here. Makes this job easier. Get a neater result. And I just bring the yarn up to the end of the copper and tie it off. Now I'll put another half hitch. And I'll wind on my tinsel. One turn right there. Now I'm going to bring the black thread along the copper here, just to create a base of thread on the copper. We're going to be tying our bucktail to this, so I want a thread base to start. Now, you might have noticed when I held up this fly originally that it had a relatively large head. And I know fashion is to make these little tiny, neat little heads, and that looks cute. But I want it to push water, and that's the reason why I build these types of flies with large heads. Not only that, they're glossy, they shine, they attract the fish with that kind of glitter that they have if you've got a bit of a sunny day. So I like those big shiny heads on these flies. They work well, they catch fish, and I don't want to be neat about them. I don't want a big robust head, I don't want a little tiny one. So, okay, now we're going to get off with our yellow. The thing to do with this is to be sparse. So start with tiny little clumps, because we're going to tie it in the round. And don't go thick. It's better to do 2, 3, or 4 than to try and make one thick clump work. Now, when you're dealing with bucktail, you've got lots of little hairs at the base. So grab it by the tip over your garbage can and stroke those short ones out. Now the next step is to pick a point on your vise. I'm going to pick this spot right here where you're going to align all of the hairs up. I don't stack these. You could if you wanted to, but I like that kind of feathered edge to it that not stacking does. As long as they're reasonably close together, that's good. So I picked my spot. I've lined up my hair. There's the end. Now I'm going to cut this over the garbage can too. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to put it on at the right spot, right about there. I'm going to put a couple of wraps, and then just going to move it with my fingers. There. And then put a couple more wraps. And you can see I've left myself a little bit of a space here at the end. And if you've got a couple of long ones, just go in there and trim them off. And the idea behind that is it allows me to taper the head. So we'll do a little bit more yellow. So I'm just going to go through and put some yellow clumps on, repeating exactly what I did in the first one. If you have any stray bits going past the head, just trim it off. Okay, now I'm going to wrap this yellow down. Before I go too far, I'm just going to double check it. If it's too thick in some spots, I'm just going to move it around. With a few wraps, you can still move it a bit, but if you got too many wraps on, you won't be able to move it. And if you see any long ones stick up, trim them off. Now we'll bring our thread all the way to the back. And I'll put a couple of soft wraps in there at the back end. There we go. There's our yellow done. Now onto the orange. I'm going to use the same process as before. Now when we're tying in the orange, I'm not going to put it right to the very end. I'm going to bring it back a bit. So this helps with that slope in the nose of the head. A couple of soft wraps. Now we just spread those around. Okay, a couple of tight wraps. That looks good. Let's take a minute to think about how we're going to put on the black. We have some choices. If we want this to be a rather bright fly, we can be fairly sparse with the black, and so the orange and the yellow really shine through. If you want this to be predominantly a fly that's going to be used in stained water, heavy water, you might want to go with more black, and since my water tends to be stained, I'm going to go with a lot of black. But this is optional. You can put more or less. Again, I'm going to trim it back even further, again, to get that tapering in the head. Now, we can take this time to rotate the fly and take a look at all the sides of the black to make sure we've got full coverage all the way around. I got a little bit of an open spot there. I'm going to put a bit more in there. I just need a few hairs to do this job. That's looking pretty good. Okay, well, let's finish this off. Okay, now we just whip finish, and from there on we put in our head cement. Then we add some junction tubing, and we're ready to go fishing. So there we go, the tube variant on the Willie Gunn. Equally effective for both steelhead and for Atlantic salmon, and I'm sure bass will take it, probably a pike will take it. Hey, it's fire tiger colors, I'm sure a pike will take it. I mean, really pretty well anything that swims and eats minnows is probably going to take this thing. So, the Willie Gunn tube fly variant. Tie it up, catch fish, have some fun. Cheers.